All right, let's get right into it. It's the question that's been hovering in the background for a while now. One that really deserves a calm, clear-eyed look. Are we on the brink of another world war?
89 seconds to midnight.
That's where the scientists who manage the Doomsday Clock say we are. It's the closest humanity has ever been rated to a global catastrophe. And it really sets the stage for where we are right now, in April of 2026.
So what does that mean in real numbers? Well, the expert consensus, the risk analysts, they put the current probability of a full-scale global kinetic war this year at between 5 and 12%. It's not a big number, but it's not zero either. And it's no longer unthinkable.
So if it were to happen, what would it actually look like? It's so important to understand that this would be a conflict completely different from anything in history. The very definition of war has changed.
Yeah, we're not talking about a formal declaration, like in the old movies. What we're really talking about is a threshold. It's that moment when direct combat ignites across multiple theaters between nuclear-armed powers like the US, Russia, and China.
And this shows you exactly how it would probably start. Not with troops crossing borders, but silently. The first shots would be fired in cyberspace and in orbit. They'd be targeting the satellites, the power grids, the financial systems that are basically the nervous system of any modern country. Then would come the hypersonic missiles and the AI-powered drones, long before any conventional army even mobilizes.
And this brings us to a really concerning shift. We're talking about tactical nukes. Now, these aren't the massive, city-destroying bombs from the Cold War. They're much smaller, designed for battlefield use. And because they exist, the idea of actually using one in a desperate situation has become more thinkable for some nations than at any point in the last 70 years.
Of course, none of this is happening in a vacuum. The global situation is what a lot of people are calling a polycrisis. You've got multiple, separate flashpoints that are all interconnected. A fire in one spot can easily and quickly throw sparks into another.
The most immediate trigger, you might look to the conflict with Iran. We're seeing downed U.S. aircraft and attacks on critical energy infrastructure in the Gulf. This isn't some abstract scenario, it's a real, tangible escalation in a region that, by the way, supplies about a third of the world's oil. The risk of a direct confrontation is incredibly high.
Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine just grinds on. It's turned into this brutal war of attrition, and it's draining Western military stockpiles and political will. And it creates this constant, direct friction between a nuclear-armed Russia and NATO. And then you look over to the Pacific, where China is keeping up its gray zone pressure on Taiwan. This is more than just military drills. It's a non-stop campaign of cyber intrusions and economic pressure, all designed to create instability and test how the world will respond. A single miscalculation there could set the whole region on fire.
And on top of all that, you've got the other persistent risks. North Korea accelerating its missile program, and that nuclear shadow that always hangs over India and Pakistan. Each one just adds another layer of instability to the whole system.
But here's why deterrence is still holding. For now, there are some really powerful forces that are pulling us back from the brink, creating this fragile digital age balance of power.
So it all comes down to this tension. On one side, you've got these escalatory pressures, new AI command systems that make decision-making happen in seconds, that lower nuclear threshold we talked about, and this interconnected polycrisis. But on the other side, the old logic of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, still applies, and our economies are so tangled up, and there are still quiet, diplomatic back channels. Those are powerful breaks.
This is a huge de-escalation factor. See, unlike in the 20th century, the great powers today are just woven together economically. Despite all the rivalry, trade between the US and China is still over $500 billion a year. The economic self-harm from a total war would be absolutely catastrophic for everyone involved.
And yet technology is the wild card in all of this. A cyber-first strike could literally blind a nation's command and control before its leaders even have a chance to get on the phone. AI-driven systems could shrink a crisis from days into minutes, making a devastating miscalculation terrifyingly possible.
So, when you put it all together, you get this picture of a global firewall. A firewall against major war, that is, for now, still standing. But it is becoming visibly thinner, and you can see it starting to fray. Now, in a balance this delicate, major powers that aren't aligned with one side or the other become absolutely critical. A nation like India, for example, has strong ties to the West, to Russia, and its own interests in Asia.
It could act as a crucial mediator in a crisis. The actions of these key swing nations could either help stabilize things, or they could be the deciding factor that pushes things over the edge.
When it comes right down to it, if a World War III happens in our lifetime, it's probably not going to start with one big, dramatic event. The far greater risk is a slow, unintended chain reaction, a miscalculation in the Persian Gulf that sparks a response in Europe, which then triggers an opportunistic move in Asia, a cascade of failures.
And that really is the bottom line here. The systems and norms that have kept great power war at bay for almost 80 years, they are under an incredible amount of stress. They are fraying, but they haven't snapped yet. And that means there's still agency, there are still off-ramps.
Which leaves us with the essential question, doesn't it? If the old firewalls are getting weaker, what does it take to build new, stronger ones? In an age of AI, cyber warfare, and these interconnected crises, what do effective diplomacy and restraint even look like? That is the challenge that's going to define the rest of our century.